I'm sitting here in our home office, staring at the box on his desk. It's a small cardboard box, the kind you'd use to pack up your life when your life suddenly becomes something you need to carry out the door. My husband hasn't put anything in it yet. He keeps walking past it, pretending it isn't there, the way you might ignore a diagnosis you're not ready to accept. His last day is Friday. His 48th birthday is Friday. The same Friday. And in some computer somewhere, in some algorithm that was designed to make difficult decisions easier for the people who don't want to make them, his name appeared on a list. Just like that. 25 years of his life, condensed to a data point, selected for deletion. My husband has worked for Microsoft for a quarter of a century. When he started, Windows 95 was still new. The internet was dial-up. He was a young man with a brilliant mind and an undiagnosed condition that made the world feel like it was always slightly out of focus, always speaking a language just adjacent to the one he understood. It would be years before we knew he was autistic. More years before the tremors in his hands would lead us to the words multiple sclerosis. But even then, even before we had names for the things that made him different, he showed up. He solved problems. He stayed. He's the most quietly loyal person I've ever met. Brilliant in a way that doesn't announce itself, doesn't need recognition, doesn't even seem to want it. He's the person who fixes things that no one else can fix, who understands systems in ways that feel almost architectural, who can see the flaw in the foundation when everyone else is still admiring the facade. He never missed a day of work. Not in 25 years. When he got sick, truly sick, he'd work from home. He'd sit at this very desk, the tremor in his hands making the mouse harder to control, and he'd work through whatever was breaking, whatever million-dollar system had crashed in the night, whatever impossible problem had landed on his queue because everyone knew he was the one who could solve it. He worked 60+ hours a week. Not because anyone asked him to. Not because there was a promotion waiting at the end of some exhausting marathon. He worked those hours because the work needed doing, because somewhere out there, people were depending on systems he helped build, and if those systems failed, he'd be the one to catch them. He took on-call shifts during Christmas. During Thanksgiving. During every holiday that other people wanted to spend with their families, he'd volunteer to be the one on duty so that co-workers with children could be home. He'd sit here with his laptop, checking alerts, fixing what broke, making sure that someone else's holiday wasn't interrupted by an emergency page. He never asked for raises. Never asked for promotions. I used to wonder about that, used to ask him why he didn't advocate for himself the way other people did, why he didn't push for recognition or advancement. He'd look at me with that particular confusion he gets when social dynamics don't make sense to him, and he'd say, "But I like what I do. Why would I want to do something else?" And that was it. That was his entire philosophy. He found work that made sense to his brain, that played to his strengths, that let him solve puzzles and fix systems and make order out of chaos. He found his place, and he stayed there. Loyal. Consistent. Brilliant in the quiet way that doesn't get headlines. He's won awards. Multiple awards. For fixing multi-million-dollar bugs, the kind of catastrophic errors that could have cost the company fortunes, could have damaged reputations, could have cascaded into failures that touched millions of users. He'd find them, trace them back through layers of code, identify the exact moment where logic broke down, and fix them. Just fix them. Then he'd document what he'd done, explain it to his team, and move on to the next problem. He's mentored hundreds of co-workers over the years. Literally hundreds. People would come to him with questions, with problems they couldn't solve, with confusion about systems that seemed designed to confuse. He'd sit with them. Explain things in his careful, methodical way. Break down complexity into something manageable. Some of those people went on to lead teams. Some of them went on to lead divisions. Some of them probably make 5 times his salary now, sitting in offices with windows and titles that sound important when you say them out loud. Even the CEOs knew his name. Not because he networked, not because he played politics, not because he knew how to work a room or make himself visible in the right ways. They knew his name because when something truly catastrophic was breaking, when the usual channels had failed and panic was setting in, someone would say, "Get him. He'll know what to do." And he did. He always did. And yet here we are. Here's the box. Here's Friday. Here's the algorithm that looked at whatever data it was programmed to look at, employees as numbers, contributions as metrics, value as something you can calculate with a spreadsheet, and decided he was redundant. Unnecessary. A cost that could be cut. He got his 25-year crystal a few months ago. It's sitting on the shelf in his office, catching light from the window. It's a beautiful thing, heavy and clear, engraved with his name and the dates of his service. Quarter of a century. An entire adult lifetime. He was so proud of it when it arrived, in that understated way he has. He showed it to me, turning it in his hands so the light refracted through it, and he said, 25 years. That's something. Now he's being walked out. Not for performance issues. Not for misconduct. Not for anything he did or didn't do. He's being walked out because an algorithm made a decision, and humans decided not to question it. I'd be so embarrassed if he knew I was writing this. He's proud of keeping a stiff upper lip, of not making a fuss, of handling adversity with the same quiet dignity he brings to everything else. When he told me about the layoff, his voice was calm. Steady. He explained it like he was explaining a technical problem, something that had occurred in the system, something unfortunate but not personal. They're doing layoffs, he said. I was selected. Last day is Friday. I asked him how they decided. He said it was algorithmic. Random, within certain parameters. A computer selected names based on whatever criteria the computer was given. No manager sat down and thought about his contributions. No one weighed his 25 years of loyalty against whatever cost-cutting goals they needed to meet. A program ran. His name appeared. That was it. It's just business, he said, in that way he has of trying to make sense of things by putting them in categories, by finding the logic even when the logic is cruel. It's not personal. But it is personal. It's his life. It's our life. It's 25 years of early mornings and late nights, of holidays spent on call, of problems solved and disasters averted and systems kept running because he was there, consistently, quietly keeping them running. I keep thinking about all the times he came home exhausted, the tremor in his hands worse from stress or overwork or the MS deciding to remind him it was there. I keep thinking about how he'd sit at this desk even when I could see the pain in the way he moved, even when I knew he should be resting, because someone was counting on him. Some system was breaking. Some problem needed solving. He'd work through it because that's what he did. That's who he was. Who he is. Who he still is, even though Friday is coming. I don't know how to explain what it feels like to watch someone you love be reduced to a line item. To watch their value, their contributions, their entire professional identity be calculated by a system that can't account for loyalty or dedication or the 1,000 invisible ways they've held things together. The algorithm didn't know about the Christmas shifts. It didn't factor in the mentoring, the quiet leadership, the institutional knowledge that walks out the door with him. It couldn't measure the respect he earned from colleagues, the trust that made people seek him out when things went wrong, the reliability that meant his name was synonymous with problems getting solved. It just saw whatever it was programmed to see. And it decided he was expendable. He's already started planning what comes next. Of course he has. He's methodical about everything, even his own obsolescence. He's updating his resume, reaching out to contacts, looking at job boards with the same careful attention he brought to debugging code. He talks about it pragmatically, lists out his options, considers possibilities. But I can see it in his eyes, the confusion that never quite resolves. The algorithm selected him. There must be logic to it. He just can't find it. That's the thing about being autistic in a neurotypical world. You spend your whole life assuming there's logic to social systems, that if you can just understand the rules clearly enough, you can navigate them successfully. You believe that competence matters, that doing good work consistently will be valued, that showing up and being reliable and solving impossible problems will count for something concrete. And then something like this happens, and the rules reveal themselves to be arbitrary after all. The logic was never what you thought it was. Friday is his birthday. 48 years old. He'll spend it packing up his desk, saying goodbye to co-workers, walking out of a building he's entered thousands of times, carrying a box that somehow contains 25 years compressed into whatever fits in 18 inches of cardboard. I asked him what he wants to do that day, after the exit interview and the badge surrender and the final walk to the car with the box. He thought about it for a long time, the way he thinks about everything, carefully considering all angles. Nothing special, he said finally. I just want to come home. Home. To this office with the box on the desk. To the life we've built around the assumption that stability exists, that loyalty is reciprocated, that doing everything right might protect you from the arbitrary cruelty of systems that see you as data. I know we'll be okay. We have savings. He'll find something else. His skills are valuable, even if one algorithm decided they weren't valuable enough. But that's not really the point, is it? The point is that somewhere along the way, we decided that algorithms could make decisions about human lives without humans having to feel the weight of those decisions. We offloaded the difficulty of choosing who stays and who goes to a system that can't account for nuance, for context, for the immeasurable value of someone who simply shows up, every day, and does the work with quiet excellence. I don't Ed pity. I'm not asking for that. We'll survive this. He'll survive this. He's survived everything else by being exactly who he is, steadily, consistently, without complaint or drama or demands for recognition. But I couldn't let him leave without someone hearing the story. Without someone knowing that behind the spreadsheet, behind the algorithm, behind the corporate necessity of cost-cutting and efficiency metrics and whatever justification makes this easier for the people who approved it, there's a person. A brilliant, loyal, quietly remarkable person who gave everything he had to give, who asked for nothing in return, who made the world a little bit better by solving problems no one else could solve. This is what the world does to people like him. People who don't know how to play the visibility game, who don't understand the unwritten rules of self-promotion and political maneuvering and making sure the right people see you at the right times. People who think that excellence should speak for itself, that showing up and doing good work consistently should be enough. People who are different in ways that make the social calculus harder but the actual work better. The world uses them, relies on them, benefits from their particular gifts. And then, when a spreadsheet demands sacrifice, it lets them go without a second thought. Without a human being looking at their record and saying, wait, this one is different. This one matters. This one stays. Friday is Ming. His 48th birthday. His last day. The day he stops being a Microsoft employee and becomes something else, something we don't have a name for yet. He'll handle it with grace. He'll pack his box methodically, label it neatly, shake hands with whoever needs their hand shaken. He'll walk out with his head up and his dignity intact, because that's who he is. He doesn't know how to be anyone else. But I needed someone to know. I needed the story to exist somewhere outside our home, outside the quiet grief I can see in his eyes when he thinks I'm not looking, outside the box on the desk that he can't quite bring himself to fill. I needed someone to know what we lose when we let algorithms make decisions about human worth. When we reduce 25 years of loyalty to a line on a spreadsheet. When we prioritize efficiency over everything else, including the people who make that efficiency possible. So now you know. And maybe it doesn't change anything. Maybe it can't. Maybe this is just how things work now, in a world where data is easier to deal with than people, where algorithms are more comfortable than conscience. But he existed. He mattered. For 25 years, he showed up and solved impossible problems and made things better without ever asking for recognition or reward. And on Friday, his 48th birthday, he'll walk out carrying a box, selected by a computer, discarded by a system that never learned to measure what he was worth. That's the story. That's what I needed someone to hear.